Good evening, it's 7 o'clock, it's Friday evening, and you are tuned, as always, to the Friday Night Football Pitch with myself, Cammie MacDonald, Dennis Newell, and our guest for the evening is Mr. Iain Harrison. And Iain isn't that tight, he is suffering with a cold, and he does have the heating on in the house. Good evening, Iain, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I've got the heating on in this room, but Donna's sitting down the stairs with a parka on, her hat and her gloves.
It must be a wee bit colder in Aberdeen than it is in the west just now, Iain.
Yeah, I think, it certainly has today. It's started to cool right down, yeah.
Yeah, a wee bit wintry. Dennis, how are you? How's things?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. Yeah,
good.
Good to see you again, Iain. You missed the golf?
I am. I haven't. I've had a look at the clubs, but never really looked back. To be honest, they're probably quite glad to be staying in the bag.
Yeah. If it was temperature's okay, but it's that wind is the nightmare. So,
yeah, most definitely.
And it looks like there's more on the way. I'm smashing, Dennis. Absolutely fantastic. Works at long last, looking as if it's quieting down. It's been kicking my arse the last couple of weeks, but obviously it looks as though it's going to start quieting down a wee bit. Obviously the time of year the parcels industry starts to fall off after a busy November and December. So yeah, looking forward to a nice couple of days off next week.
What did it do with parcels, Cammie? Is it Chapdoor Runaway? Because I missed a parcel a day and I was in the kitchen. Honestly, they're not real.
I can't believe you've taken so long to answer the door, Dennis.
Well, you've got to be a bit slower at my age. You need to hear them first.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. That's that Amazon for you. You know that they're all the same. Anyway, that's 2 minutes of general bullshit. So we shall move on to football talk. And I think the only place to start, and I can't believe we're actually looking back almost a week now, is to the cup final. Not a cup final that many expected. I think everyone expected probably a comfortable Celtic victory. Obviously, Celtic did indeed get their victory, but Dennis, it wasn't in the manner, as I say, that many expected. And Rangers, are we a bit unkind to Rangers by saying they ran them close? Did Rangers actually deserve more from the cup final than what they got?
I don't know about getting more from it, but certainly it was one of the better cup finals that I've seen in many a year. And when you look at the state of play that Rangers have been in, and they've had a fair kicking for all angles, including me, up until about 3 weeks ago, they really turned it on enough that made Celtic work really hard for it. I mean, there's debates about penalties and everything which we can go into, but at the same time, Rangers come out with a desire to actually try and win the game, and their commitment and energy levels was absolutely excellent.
Yeah.
There was a lot of flaws on both sides, but it bounced back and forward. And if you look at it, you say to yourself, if Iggerman had been a wee bit better with the three that were beside him when he had only the goalkeeper and the centre half to beat and laid it off, Rangers would have been 2-0 up, and it might have changed the whole view of how the game was going to pan out. And he elected not to do the square ball, try to beat, centre half come in and made a magnificent tackle right enough. When Carter Vickers closed them right down, it was excellent. But at the same time, that was a certainty. And I think really, if you had to look at it and ask the question, did they deserve to win on the back of it with their finishing, I would say no.
Yeah.
Because it has been the bugbear the whole season, and I've rattled my gums about it, which he's eventually seen. And I don't know why managers, especially I'm sitting here as just somebody that's viewing the game, can't see the flaws. And we spoke about it on and on and on again. Dessers. He's left them out, and the transformation is night and day with the whole team.
Yeah.
And it does show you that if you can get confidence, and I've said this many a time, if the people behind you and you're the forward are believing that you're going to finish or you're going to do something, you will squeeze the game up, you will be more confident, and you'll play an awful lot better. Centre forwards to believe that if you're not doing the gig, the rest of your team's falling by the wayside. And that was what was happening when Dessers wasn't playing. Iggerman, well, I don't know. I don't think he's a great deal better, but he is better. and that is what's maybe changed for Rangers better.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of mistakes in the game. You look at it and just sort of like going into it in great detail. You had, you look at Raskin, and he had 3 errors. 2 of the goals he caused, and then he missed a penalty.
Yeah.
And you say to yourself, well, okay, he had a bad game, but at that level, you shouldn't be making as many mistakes as that. Igaman, I've said that he's missed that chance. So there was flaws. Then you look at the trio that Celtic have got. They had Taylor, who passes the ball square, get caught out, and they score from it. You then had his substitutes, which I thought, if anything, Rangers had a great chance when they changed it. Possibly the fact that when he putting players on, they've got to be better than what he actually had in the park.
Yeah.
Ralph, we've said it numerous occasions, no fit for the job at that level. The same with the Scotland team. He failed to get in front of him, which was a good cross, but as a defender at that level, you've got to stop that guy getting his head on it and scoring.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a debate, which we can open up and both of you can have comments on it, is Scales, another liability. So there you've got 3 out of the back 4 as it finished the game.
Yeah.
And Celtic were lucky not to lose the game on the back of Scales hauling the boy down. Why did he pull him? I don't know. I have absolutely no idea. And I've watched this tug at his jersey about a dozen times, and I look at it and go, what are you doing?
That's mere times about VAR looked at it, that's for sure.
I just don't know.
I would ask the question, so how many of those players have played in that atmosphere before? Now, I'm not a fan of either team, and I had the hair in the back of my neck standing up.
Yeah.
With the whole buzz of the place. And that your adrenaline is going to be absolutely buzzing. You'll get an extra 10, 15% out of every player, which means you've maybe got that desire to impress, to play better, and it sometimes works against you. But I mean, I thought the atmosphere in the whole ground was absolutely electric. Okay, we can debate the flair thing till we're blue in the face, but I mean that goes on all over Europe and kind of goes unnoticed. It's a new thing, obviously, in Scottish football. Aberdeen did the same as well. I mean, everybody wants to get noticed, do their thing. Hopefully, that'll. You don't see games getting delayed because of things like that and whatever. But I thought the atmosphere was absolutely amazing. An MD who watched that as a neutral, okay, I agree, Dennis. Lots of mistakes, but we're all humans. They all make mistakes, and I think adrenaline goes with that as well. They could have played on a better pitch. The pitch was amazing. Yeah. And I thought that, but at the end of the day, if quality players do not make that kind of mistakes normally.
No, and that's the difference now, that the Rangers and Celtic are both lacking quality. Celtic just slightly less so than obviously what Rangers are. But Iain, is it an example of your own club has had a lot of praise this season, particularly for the start they made in the Premier League. But is it an example of how far Rangers have declined, that they're getting plaudits for almost beating Celtic? You know, the plaudits Rangers have been getting from certain parts of the media as regards to, obviously, you ran Celtic close, but you just didn't quite do enough.
I believe so.
Is that an alarming state on an alarming message on the rest of Scottish football?
It is, because it means that everybody's accepting the fact there is only one team in Scotland. And we got a draw at Parkhead. Luckily, but we've still got one. But you would have thought it was a result of the season, you know.
Yeah.
And that is really where we've got to. If you can get anything out of Celtic now, you've achieved a major thing. And Rangers must be embarrassed to think that they're getting plaudits for running close.
Yeah. They were a million miles away, 3 or 4 weeks away. You know, you look back 3 or 4 weeks ago, and honestly, it was beyond a hard watch. It was suffering watching the Rangers play, even in Europe, and they're winning games. And you're saying, how dreadful is that football? What you're looking at, and the key point is result first, or points. Results first, entertainment second. Well, they've got maybe just slightly back to front, but they have been pulling results in Europe. They have done it in the league. And just in that particular instance, they certainly entertained. And I'm the first to jump in their back. But I'll tell you what, I thought they gave as good as they got last week. They really did.
Yeah, I mean, Celtic were the first to admit that they did not play well.
Yeah.
But you're going to say that when you've basically had to go to penalties.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to say, well, we should have won that comfortably, so why didn't we? Didn't turn up on the day.
No, I mean, Clement's had a lot of criticism. I don't remember a manager being as heavily criticised as what Clement has been over probably the last, well, certainly this season anyway. He obviously got a wee bit of praise for turning Rangers around a bit last season, but I mean, he's been absolutely pilloried, the man. But the last month or so, Dennis, I think he has started to turn things around a little bit. You know, he's still coming out with stupid comments, but I think he has started to turn things around. You've said yourself, on the park, Rangers have started getting some results in Europe. They've started getting results in the league. And perhaps it is a measure of the fact of the improvement of the Ibrox club that they did manage to run Celtic close and probably should have won the game.
The jury's still out for me in this Cammy with the manager.
Well,
I've never said at any given time.
I know that. Yeah.
I've never said at any given time that he should go. But when you see what was before him in Bale, I've never seen really a great deal of change in the team itself. They've had a wee bit more desire recently.
Yeah.
And I still believe that it's taken them 6 months or whatever to see that Dessers is no what he requires up front. And that kind of incompetence for me says, do you really know what a good player is?
He's maybe not the options. He's maybe not had the option.
Here's what the litmus test of this will be. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Now he's got a January window coming up. And there's where I really think he's got to produce 2 or 3 really players of quality that he's probably been searching for if he's doing his job properly since the start of the season. So I would say he's brilliant at this moment in time because he's run them Celtic close and he's put a bit more energy into the team, and that's the brilliant side of it because it really was dire. Now, see that January, he's really got to, for me personally, if my opinion's got to change in him, he's really got to impress me with 3 players at least that he brings into that team because they are mediocre to say the best. Mm-hmm. And as soon as they dip from the energy levels which they've had the last 3 weeks, they're gubbed again.
Yeah.
And that will only take a game against mid-table, a St Mirren or a Motherwell or something like that, and they'll go back to square one again because I don't think he has actually got yet what it takes to make Rangers turn the corner and compete against Celtic or even Aberdeen for that matter.
Yeah.
Do you believe that Rangers have actually got the money to go and buy players?
That's the thing, you know.
Because the word on the street is they don't.
No, I think you could be right, Ian. But if you look at it, Golston and what's the other wee guy with the blonde hair? It came from Norwich and his kidney selling. They left and they only get £800,000 for them.
Yeah, I mean the whole summer dealings.
That's just a joke because the guys are probably, they're worth a lot more than that in today's market. And if that's your kind of transfer money that's coming in, you're not going to get very far with it. Whereas Celtic sell players at £20 million. And I mean, if you even look at Celtic, I'm not great buyers either, because the boy Ingles has still impressed me by a mile. He's just an ordinary player at this moment in time.
Cantwell, Dennis.
Cantwell, that's right, for Rangers. But I mean, just drifting to Ingles, he got turned quite easily in the 6-yard box for the boy to finish in Sunday's game. So, you've got to buy wisely. And for £11 million that Celtic have spent, I don't think Rangers will get anywhere near that kind of money to go out and buy players in the summer.
I don't believe they have.
No, and that's a worry. That's a worry. But there's me. I've said that a couple of weeks ago. You need to start looking. You need to start looking like Celtic brought in the boy McGowan for Dundee. I think he's decent for the Premier League, and that's what you've got to do. You've got to bring players in that you can make them better, and you've got to do it on the cheap. That's a sign of a good manager. Anybody can go out and buy players. Anybody. So, I think the real test for him is January.
Yep.
I'll tell you what, he's done brilliant to weather the storm. Seriously, I actually thought there's every possibility that he could have gone. But, you only need to look back, and I keep looking back a long while ago. Alex Ferguson was one game away in Man United for being a total disaster. And look at how he turned out. Maybe this man at Ibrox is the same. You don't know.
Yeah, you never know. Iain, obviously you're of an era where you can remember refereeing decisions going against Celtic, and Celtic being very, very critical of the referee and slaughtering the ref and whatever else. But Rangers seem to have that situation now, where refereeing decisions apparently aren't going for them, etc. That they appealed very, very loudly for the penalty. I think Dennis has touched on it earlier. What's your thoughts? Was it a penalty? Should it have been awarded? Or was the referee's decision right? You're on mute, Iain.
Can't hear you.
Sorry.
That's you now, Iain.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. I mean, we have spent years and years crying out that nobody else gets a fair rub of the green against the Old Firm. That penalty in the last 5 minutes, the one that's turned over against you, the clear one that's denied, whatever. Every club will say the same thing. The Rangers are, for once, they've actually lost out in a decision. I'm still not sure it was a clear-cut penalty. Yes, there was a bit of rugging and pulling and whatever, but it seemed to be right on the line as far as I'm concerned. And I'm not sure. Is it, if you're on the line, are you in? Or
Iain, if you look at it as I have done over and over, because like yourself, I wasn't convinced, but because Clement was that adamant, he was really adamant about this being a penalty. I thought, I'm going back in to look at that. Now, I don't blame the referee, believe it or not. I blame VAR big time. Because in the instance, it's one of them. It's a flash. You don't know whether he's just over. But if you look really closely at it, his jersey is getting hauled into the box. And he's probably in the box with holding his jersey by about 2 inches. Now, for VAR, who are getting paid good money to be doing this, for not to actually spot that, it's shocking. Absolutely shocking. At that level of football too.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's one of them. See, without VAR, the game goes on. Nobody complains. But because there's VAR, and you've got this coverage now, every nut and bolt gets turned over, and then you've got Clement, like sour grapes. So he should have let it go, actually. He should have just said, look, we'll do better the next game. Instead, all week though, Cammy, he's harped on about it. Instead of going on about maybe how good his players were against a really good team that have done exceptionally well just now. To me, it was never going to be given. They're not going to reverse it. You've had Willie Collins come out and say they should have given it.
Reverse it, yeah. But that's the kind of decision that VAR is there to get right, Yes. And if VAR can't get that right, what the hell's the point in it being there?
Yeah, I totally agree.
Because if that can't sort out something as blatant as was he in or outside the box, then there's no point in having a video assisted referees. Let's be honest, there's absolutely no point in that being there. I don't like it anyway. I never have done. I feel the rules have been rewritten of football because it was always in the opinion of the referee. That has now been removed as far as I'm concerned, so it's something I've never liked. And if it can't get simple decisions like that correct, and it doesn't even look at them, then what's the hell the point in it being there?
Am I right that the referee's been suspended for this weekend?
The 2 in VAR, I think, were.
Is it 2 in VAR that have been suspended?
Yeah, I think that is what I heard. Yeah.
Well, there's basically Clement's complaints have been validated then. If they're going to suspend the 2 guys who are sat there looking at a monitor, that's basically says to Clement, you're absolutely right. That we messed up big style. We'll suspended the 2 guys who are responsible for cocking up, the 2 guys who are responsible for cocking up a chance of you to win a cup final. That's an admission of guilt by the powers that be, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, and that is It's completely that's him completely vindicated by that.
Yeah.
And they will dine out in that for a long time.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, Ian, is everybody knows that, and I think we're now at Friday, and it was on the news tonight. You're almost a week after
I know
and it's still a highlight. You've got to be more professional in that. Let people read into it whatever they want. The head of refereeing has basically said we made the mistake, and it's people have been punished for it, and say, okay, I'll tell you what, yeah, we're listening, we see it now. You'll need to do something about that because that cost us a cup, so to speak, and then let it lie. Then let it lie. You can't do anything else.
At the end of the day, nobody was going to know once if a penalty was given. They probably would have scored, but who's to say that they're definitely going to score?
That's
and then who's going to say what's going to happen after that? You cannot predict what is going to happen after a decision has been made. We're all fallible, and VAR was supposed to make us infallible.
Well, so I've said it right at the beginning. If Iggerman squares the ball instead of Carter Vickers makes the tackle, then it's a different game altogether. So it's like that. And that's maybe the point I'm making about the manager. He should maybe have concentrated on the missed chance rather than the penalty that wasn't given, which was then retracted by the referee, and said, look, we made a mistake. Okay, move on. And then he should look at the missed chances.
But Dennis, earlier on, a few minutes ago, you quoted or mentioned, obviously, Sir Alex Ferguson, in terms of he was one game away for the sack and all the rest of it, which we all know, which is well documented. Who was the biggest guy for transferring the guilt from his players to everything else? It was a football strip. It was the referee. It was the media. It was this. It was that. That's all Clement's doing. So to me, Clement is being professional by diverting everything from the fact that his players messed up, that they had a clear chance, that Iggerman should have squared the ball, that Dessers shouldn't have missed a chance, that he shouldn't have missed a penalty. That's just diverting.
It's different ways that people deal with it. That's all I'm really highlighting. I would have dealt with it different, but then I'm no him. And the bottom line is other people would deal with it, maybe even ranting on about it for another 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I think Rangers have got enough on their plate. They should be happy what went on to a point. They played really well and look forward to what's coming up. And then I'll tell you what, in January when they've got Celtic, let's see what you're made of then.
Yep. Yeah, and that's going to be it. Let's see what happens, because I think if Clement came out and says, this should have happened, that should have happened, my player should have done this, my player should have done that. Anything he's done over the last month to get these players playing for him goes right out the window, So he's diverting the tactics, he's diverting everything from the players, from their inability to take a chance or to score a penalty, as I say. And that's all he's doing,
I think if he can convince... If he can convince the supporters, who wouldn't have taken a lot of convincing, that the fault lies with the officials, not him and not his team, then one of the major parts of keeping your job is the supporters backing you.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying he's intentionally doing that, but you're right. He's keeping it away for his players.
Correct.
At the end of the day, you should have scored more goals, conceded less.
Yeah. Yeah. No, listen.
And that is a bottom line. And even you mentioned Ferguson earlier. Even he's used to say, over a season, you usually get the rub of the green, and you will lose as many as you win. So it tends to even itself out.
Maybe I think Ian, days of old that was the case. That's where VAR is. What your statement there is what Big Maxwell said on the TV the other day. And I don't believe that's the case nowadays, because VAR is there to stamp that out with the equal tipping. Or 1 week you'll get a penalty, one you won't, and it bounces and balances itself out. That's not meant to happen anymore with VAR.
No, you're right. It's supposed to be infallible, and it's a clear decision, and that's the end of it. Yeah.
Anyway, on the back of that, what I will say is I thoroughly enjoyed the game. Thought it was brilliant.
It was a good advert for Scottish football.
Brilliant. Yeah, and I don't often say to my English colleagues, did you see the game? But I did this week.
Yeah.
Aye, that's it, exactly.
As long as you didn't watch the post and pre-match stuff that went on in Glasgow, the rest of it was fantastic.
Yeah, that's it. The football on the park was brilliant. The knuckle draggers off the park need to look at themselves.
Yeah.
Let's be fair. They Neanderthals who are still causing chaos and all sorts of stuff. And we mentioned it last week, Dennis. You know, with Andy Burrows. You know, we did talk about the fighting and the nonsense and everything else, you know, that goes on alongside following many clubs in Scotland, not just the Old Firm, but they obviously tend to get highlighted probably because they tend to feature in more finals than the rest of the clubs, you know, but they do tend to get featured. And I think that's the least said about that, the better, Ian. You're probably correct.
Well, my point was last week I said at least to keep it in the terracing. That was the real kiss of death, wasn't it? And then you see it in the streets and you're going, dearie me.
Yeah, well, a girl I work with, her family's from Glasgow, and she was in Argyle Street on Sunday.
Oh.
She says, "Oh my God," she says.
Yeah.
Couldn't believe it.
Yeah. It is unfortunately I was almost saying an unnecessary evil. It's an unnecessary evil of some of the half-wits that follow sides in Scottish football, you know. And as I say, it's not just the Old Firm, but as I say, they certainly do get highlighted more than the rest. And we did touch on the fact that it's a society issue and whatever else last week, Dennis, you know. But
don't worry, Aberdeen's got their fair share of nutters as well.
Yeah, that's it.
But you know? What sometimes irritates me is that there was a ton of police there. We didn't see all the coverage, but there's a ton of police, and they looked as if they were herded together, never mind the supporters.
Yeah.
And to me, they should have just found the first artificial surface that was free on Sunday, put them in the back of a van, herded them in there, took their tickets off them, get the masks off them, get their pictures taken, get their identities and everything all logged, and then they've missed the game. That's the only way. They all went to the game. You could see the pyrotechnics at the end of both ends that were shocking. So you look at it and you say to yourself, you've then got Susan Aiken for Glasgow City Council rattling her gums about, the clubs need to do more. She can't even fix a pothole. What chance has she actually got of doing anything that's going to be worthwhile? And then
it's very easy to put the blame on the clubs.
And then John Swinney's the same. But he's too busy visiting cake factories. So between they two, they need to get a real look at what their role is. This was happening before the game. Right. The streets should be policed, not when they're in the ground, certainly. It should be policed. And that's when the clubs should take ownership. But while it's in the streets, the city centre, that should be policed. That's nothing to do with the clubs. And when you're in the actual grounds as well, and I think there is a shortage of police, would you expect a steward to be standing up to any of these lunatics?
Nope.
No.
So you tell me how there is a deterrent. There's none. Absolutely none. So the whole shambles of last week almost took a bit of gloss away from the game. It's bugged me all week, these people, because they're not nice human beings. As you say, there was females in Argyle Street, and you could see them jumping into shops, fear of death. Why? It's tribal. We're nearly going back to the caveman. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that was my wee rant. So I just said.
So. No, that's it. As I say, the least said about these clowns, the better, you know. So let's leave it there, because there's no point giving them any additional publicity, you know, for all the folk that we obviously have watching us. But there's no point in giving any of these half-wits, as I say, any additional publicity, you know. So that's it. Anyway, moving on. We'll talk about what we mentioned last week. Andy Burrows last week was talking about his Tottenham Hotspur. Fully expected them to lose to Southampton. Fully expected them to lose last night to Manchester United. They've scored 10 goals, Dennis, and looked good in the process doing it.
Well, I did say to him that Southampton were really poor, and I did think as well Tottenham would get a result out of this, and they did comfortably. They actually blew Southampton away. And if you look at the team that actually played, with the exception of Werner, they were more or less the same that played against Rangers. And there you are, you go back again. An outstanding performance with Rangers against Tottenham in relation to the result, getting a draw with a team that Southampton, they're not great by any manner of means, but the way that Tottenham actually played was excellent. I watched most of it. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't see the Man United game. But overall, you've got to look at them goals.
Last night was amazing.
You really wonder what Fraser Foster's all about, don't you?
I would say his feet are merely for walking with.
Oh, 100%. You know, that was two of the worst goalkeeping mistakes I think I've seen in quite some time.
That was
Followed in close
hilarious.
succession by one by the other, you know.
Yeah.
But as I say, Spurs, they almost blew it on a couple of occasions, but they probably just did enough to merit the 4-3 victory last night over a Manchester United side who are obviously fresh from, well, as Andy says last week, everybody's beating Manchester City, and Manchester United did that last night again. Dennis, I think Pep Guardiola's managerial career is actually looking worse than worse than yours was. His month of November and December have been absolutely dire, to say the least.
Well, my November month, when I was managing, I get manager of the month.
Exactly. That's why I brought it up, mate.
So I think there's a bit of a gulf in relation to real football. East Stirling doesn't come into the radar then. But yeah, it was nice to get that November manager of the month when the likes of Gretna were in the league at the time. But Pep Guardiola is struggling. And I don't know how he's going to change that. I just don't. Ian, what's your thoughts on how he actually gets that team turned?
It all comes from confidence. He's got players whose heads are down. I think there's a lot of contract negotiation going on with various players, but you've got to look at the average age of some of his sections of his team. You've got De Bruyne, who's well into his 30s, and doesn't seem to last 2 or 3 games without being injured. Mm-hmm. You've got Kyle Walker. Well, he's into his 30s as well now. He's lacking a bit, and his diving last week was unbelievable. That was really desperate stuff. That against Man United. Exactly. So I mean, he's got players who I would say are past their best, and he has not. He's let them go, or he's got various ones go. The ones that he's brought in, he's got a lot of youth players coming through, but he doesn't have that balance, and it looks like the team that he has is not capable of playing the style of football he wants them to play as they stand. Yeah. And he's going to have to rethink, how the hell do I shore this team up and stop leaking goals?
But they had world beaters in that team. If you look at it, Gundogan or whatever his name is.
The German,
Right. Centre midfield. By the way, he was a world beater about 6 months ago. I just wonder what's happened to him.
He doesn't hit. He's lost that yard or two of pace. That darting runs he used to make into the box. I mean, the amount of goals he scored was unbelievable. Making runs for midfield. They've got nobody is really making that runs for midfield now. They don't have it. And they've got one or two there who I think flattered to say. I mean, they've got the who's the lad at the bottom from Aston Villa? I mean, he's on season 2 or 3 now.
Jack Grealish.
He's never done anything.
Yeah. I mean, I
would fancy my chances marking him, because you know what he's going to do every time he gets a ball.
But you just never seem to see him setting the hair on fire. He's like,
never does it. No, gets a ball, cuts inside, and slips it back.
But I'll tell you what, the boy Doku, he's a talent. But again, I think his teammates don't know what he's actually going to do with the ball. But what a talent he is.
Yeah.
But listen, they have got talent. I just think that, have they got a leader on the park? You touched on it. De Bruyne, it's too many times he's been injured now, and he just doesn't look the finished article anymore. It's as if he's in there, but he's not contributing. No. And I don't think they'll get a leader on there. Even although I think Walker is a man playing in a man's position, I just don't think they have somebody that can grab them all by the throat and get on with it. But individually, I would say that nearly every player in that Man City team would get a place in anybody's starting lineup in Europe.
But they're struggling in confidence.
Yeah.
Even the big fella up front. Even he's resorted to the whinging and the moaning.
Yeah. He's a shadow of himself. There's no doubt about it.
Absolutely. And I think as everybody knows, sport is all about confidence. And if the confidence is not there, and it's certainly not, and I don't know how he reinstates that. And he's coming up to a really busy time of year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
mean, you look at their squad. Some of the players they have there are just absolutely outstanding. You know, they've got an outstanding goalkeeper in the shape of Ederson, but he's only had 2 clean sheets this season. You know, guys like Ruben Diaz, Kyle Walker, you've mentioned. You know,
well, Diaz, he's out.
Quality. Yeah,
that's him out. He's out for at least, I think, a month or so.
Yeah. Guardiola is quality as well. You know, the Croatian. You know, and obviously they're bringing through. You're saying about the age of players. They're bringing through young guys like Rico Lewis. You know, he looks decent. Anytime I've seen him, you know. But I mean, Rodri's only played a couple of games this season. You know, so he's been injured. Bernardo Silva, he's looking good. Nunes, you know, and the big man up front, as you mentioned him, he's got 16 appearances for 13 goals, you know. So they still know where the goal is. They just seem to be struggling at the other end, you know, and I think it's getting that consistency at the back. He's chopped and changed that back four. You know, he's having to chop and change the
injuries, so
players injured. Yeah. That's it, exactly, you know. But I certainly don't think there's any doubt that Man City this year are going to go on and make it 5 Premier League trophies in a row. I think they've shot the bolt on that one, and it's beginning to look a 2-horse race. Dennis, between Liverpool and the surprise team of the season so far in Chelsea.
Absolutely, I thought Chelsea have really impressed.
What a turnaround! I mean, if you look at what we're talking about just now with Man City, they're almost looking like a Chelsea was when we talk about it quite regular when Billy Reid and Graham Potter were there. And you said to yourself, how can Chelsea be turned round? Now, they have turned round, but there's not many of the players are left. And I just wonder in real terms what it's actually cost them from, what's the guy's name that's got the England job?
Tuchel. Thomas Tuchel.
Tuchel.
From Tuchel was there to now. Right, there's been managers in and left. Now you look at it and you say to yourself, that's quite a gulf. And what would you say that is? 3 years maybe?
Yeah.
It's taking them to go back to being a winning team. And they're doing that now. And I tell you what, they're a treat to watch the way Man City were. And that's what my worry would be if you're a Man City supporter, is how long is it going to take you to get back to where you were? Mm-hmm. And I can't see that if the squad of players that they've got, as we've spoke about, don't turn the corner themselves. Because when you look back at the Chelsea team, there was stars in that team beyond belief, and they just never played. But this guy's got them really well. I'll tell you what,
but I think the difference between the previous managers and this one is he knows what his best team is.
Yeah.
And he doesn't change that team that often. Unless he has to, or he's saving players, you know, for whatever reason. But he knows what his best team is, and I thought they are clicking.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about that guy was managing in the English Championship last year in the shape of, you know, in charge of Leicester. He's brought Leicester up. Chelsea have taken a punt on him. There's no doubt about it, you know. And it seems to have come to fruition, you know, because Chelsea have looked the most improved side by a mile, you know. Liverpool have been outstanding this season, but in terms of the improvement from last season to this, so far it's looking like Chelsea. And I think Amaron will turn Manchester United around. It's going to probably take him slightly longer than the rest of the season, you know, but I definitely think he'll turn Manchester United around. But Chelsea have by far and away made the most improvements this season.
There's no doubt about it. You look at Man City have got a mountain to climb, but I just had a quick look at their fixtures throughout the remainder of the year. They've got Aston Villa away. They then have a home game against Everton. They then have an away game to Leicester City, and that's him finished for the month.
That should be 9 points, because Aston Villa have been a shadow of the side they were earlier in the season. They've fallen off. Everton, definitely. And I think Everton are much of a muchness. You know, you don't know what you're going to get with Everton. You know, I think Everton 1 week can look fantastic, and the next week they can look pretty poor. You know, but I think they will stay up, which is quite a surprise, I think. And Leicester just are poor, you know. They're a very, very poor side under new management as well, you know. So I think you're looking at Leicester and Southampton and pick any one from another 6 clubs to go down.
Yeah, there's a few there, as you say, they're all hanging about. But
yeah,
they kind of break free. They kind of get a run going.
I think you've got two certainties in actual fact that their managers get the sack at the weekend was Wolves and Southampton. I think they were certainties in my head.
Southampton, yes. I mean that's there's your relegated sides already, Wolves, Southampton and Leicester, unless obviously the new manager at Wolves can turn things around. But I think Gary O'Neill's suffered there at Wolves for the fact that there's no consistency there in terms of the squad. You know, they're bringing players in and punting them out cheaply and not replacing them. You know, and I think that's the thing. You look at Wolves have tried to do what Brighton have done, what Brentford have done, you know, in terms of, as I say, buying players cheaper and punt them on at a profit. They've done that very successfully. But that's eventually going to catch up with you if you can't bring in players of a similar quality. And I think that's what's happening at Wolverhampton Wanderers. And Gary O'Neill has suffered for that because Gary O'Neill's a good young manager, you know, and I think he proved that last season when he took over at Wolves. He's a decent young manager, but his squad's been decimated by players being moved on, you know. So
he spoke well after the game. And then before you know where you are, he was at the door. But to be honest, Cammy, I've watched Wolves. They were shocking.
Listen, Dennis, as I say, that's definitely they have been. But as I say, you're looking at a side there who have continually moved on decent players. They've done it with Jota. They've done it with other players as well, where they just buy them reasonably cheap, punt them on at a profit. And eventually, if you cannot replace players that you sell on with a similar talent, you are going to suffer for that, you know. And I think what's happening behind the scenes and what's happening in the boardroom is what's cost Gary O'Neill his job rather than his own incompetence, you know.
And I would completely agree with that. And that is where most of the decisions are made. They're made in the boardroom. And what are we here to do? Are we here to survive? Yeah, we're trying to survive. But we're trying to balance the books the best we can. And we need to make some money.
Yeah.
And
that's going to happen in the Premier League.
And that is going to happen. It's a cutthroat league. There's absolutely no doubt of that.
Yeah. Anyway, Dennis, moving on to back to the bread and butter stuff. Obviously, with the week with no real European football, well, other than Hearts, but the least said about that, the better. I think last night, another very, very disappointing performance by Hearts in Europe last night to lose to only get a 2-each draw with.
They got a draw, yeah.
You know, but that performance.
I didn't watch it because I was still enjoying the weekend's game, and I thought, don't drag yourself back down into the gutter again. And that was being a wee bit disrespectful. But at the bottom line is that Hearts were playing a team in 36th position who had played 6 games and only drew 2, and one of them was last night. And all they had to do was win that game, and they would have made the playoffs. The cut-off was 24th spot, and they ended up in 25th, with 4 teams above them on the exact same points. And what does that tell you? And I've harped on about it since the start of the season. They can't score goals. And the manager, if he doesn't in the window get, and I said this last week, he desperately needs to get somebody that can score goals there, because Shankland is not doing the gig. He said a wee whisper of a chance last week when he scored 2 goals. Duck egg again. Nothing. And they're relying on him, and it's not working. So you need to get better ammunition in there.
Yeah.
And that means you need to, in January window, if this guy's wanting to keep the job, he needs to get himself a couple of strikers and maybe just 1 or 2 players extra. One at the back especially, because you got a lot of injuries there.
Well, the thing is, they were playing a side last night who'd scored 3 goals in the competition up until last night. And last night they almost doubled their tally. You know, by putting 2 against Hearts, and it could have been more, you know. So very, very disappointing performance.
I think it's a bit of a shame actually, because it was 35 years since I've been at this stages, and you just look at it for maybe 1 goal, they could have been there in the playoffs, and it would have been outstanding for Hearts to get there, and I'd have been delighted for them. But the bottom line is, if you can't address the issue that you already know is a problem by not scoring goals, sorry.
Yeah, but
you're not going to get there.
It's not his fault. He's come in and taken over a squad, you know. So as you say, if he can make improvements in the window, then fair play to him. But we'll just need to see what happens. But anyway, looking
again, it's whether he's getting the money. It's whether he gets the money.
Yeah, I think that this will be interesting in terms of obviously the statisticians that's taken over at Hearts, you know, that the behind the scenes guys, you know, that they've got this match up with what's his face, the guy at Brighton, you know, at Tony Booth. They've got the tie-in with him, you know. So let's see what happens with that, you know. So hopefully that'll reap some rewards for them.
Yeah, maybe they've got something lined up just now, which would be really good. Do you get Buckfast in cans, Cammy?
Yes, you do actually. I don't know.
Right,
this is a bit nicer than Buckfast, by the way.
All right, okay. Just
so I've never touched the stuff, Dennis. So there you
go.
I'm not that close to Airdrie and Coatbridge, you know. So there we are. Right. Anyway, fixtures for the weekend. Let's look at the fixtures in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Let me one to kick off tonight. Obviously,
it's nothing each after 2 minutes. Motherwell playing Kilmarnock. Tomorrow we have Aberdeen Hibs. We'll come back to these when we finish the Saturday and Sunday fixtures. Aberdeen Hibs, Rangers Dundee and Ross County St Mirren. Then on Sunday, Dundee United, Celtic, Hearts, St Johnstone. And if we start even by today's game, Motherwell. And I sung their praises last week or the week before, simply because they were getting dogs abuse, right? Stuart Kettlewell, when we're sitting there looking at the league, and at the time I think they were maybe fifth when I said that, people need to have a look at themselves and really try and understand the financial climate that the club's working under and also what their expectations are. A magnificent result against Dundee United gets them up into fourth spot now. I know they're a point just ahead of Dundee United, but that's massive. That's massive. Yeah. You're looking at 7 points short of Rangers? Incredible. Yeah. They've played the game extra. But that's unbelievable. And for supporters to be actually on the guy's case, they need to get a look at themselves. So maybe I'll get a bit of respite for the next couple of weeks. It'll be interesting to see if he can get a result today. If he does against Kilmarnock, especially at home, which I think he will, that'll be another 3 points, which takes him closer to Rangers again. I know it's 2 games he's played more, but I'll tell you what, that's to me a massive success. Massive.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And again, they can only build on that, hopefully, you know, and tonight could be the well, I was going to say could be the start of it, but maybe not quite the start of it, but certainly they can only build on some of these results, you know, and Motherwell, I think, are too good to get down, but they're not good enough to probably challenge for a top 3 or a top 4 place, you know, a European spot. So I think Motherwell are going to probably look at that mid-table mediocrity come the end of the season, or certainly mid-table, and they are. You've said yourself, maybe lift themselves for a game against the Old Firm, but ultimately, I don't think they'll be challenging for cups, and I don't think that, as I say, they'll be challenging for a European spot.
Anybody that's at that club's got to say, if you can make the split and be in the top 6, that's been more than successful. Yeah. I think anybody out with the top 4 of Celtic, Rangers, Aberdeen, Hibs or Hearts. Anybody out with that, if their team can get in the top 6, I'm talking about years gone by, because obviously Hibs and Hearts are not that great now. You'd be saying to yourself, that's brilliant, we can get in the top 6. But the game, obviously, Ian, that would be more interest to you is tomorrow is Aberdeen are playing Hibs.
Yep. I mean, 3-3 the last time they played. November, December up till now hasn't been that great. We're still looking for a win again. But at the end of the day, we've only lost 2 games in the league. But you can see that the form has other results have dipped. Some of the reports coming back from a few friends that are season ticket holders, and they were saying that they are trying, but some of he says back to the basics. The passing wasn't that great, but there is a lot of commitment. Now, they've had a little break because they didn't play last weekend. So they're coming in a period where they've had that extra week really to sharpen the team up, get them rested, but also tactically get them right, get the players fit that are maybe we're struggling a wee bit with the odd injuries. So I'm expecting Aberdeen to come out with all guns blazing tomorrow, and I'm looking for a comfortable win. Now, I've said that, but God knows what will happen. But as I said earlier, it will not be through a lack of effort.
No, well, Hibs in the back of the last week's result, a 3-1 against Ross County, was a real good result. But again, I would put Ross County down there, St Johnstone as your two teams that will be shifted out of this division. Well, certainly one of them is definitely going to get relegated. But Ross County just don't turn up for me. They had a wee spell there where their defence was quite good, and they were shutting the door and teams weren't scoring. But Hibs, that's a lifeline for them, that result last week. And even bigger is if they could get something out of tomorrow's game against Aberdeen.
I'm actually hoping that they come up to Aberdeen and give it a go, because any time we play against a team that shuts the back door, we struggle.
But they can't shut the back door. That's the problem they've had. That's why they're the bottom of the league. They're hopeless at doing it. The defence issues have improved slightly because basic mistakes have not been done just as much. But overall, they've got a long way to go. And there's no way in this planet that you would even attempt to defend against Aberdeen in an away match like that. If they do, they'll get hurt big time. Yeah. And they obviously didn't do it against Ross County, hence the reason why they've won the match 3-1.
Yeah. Indeed.
Other fixtures,
I think Hibs will do enough to stay up, believe it or not.
I think so as well. I think Hibs and Hearts will stay up.
Yeah.
I think
Scottish football needs them to stay up.
You're right, Ian. Without a doubt. They're massive clubs in Scotland.
We need the big clubs up there, and regardless of what anybody says, you need to generate.
There's an acceptance when the likes of Livingstones and teams like this bounce up and bounce back down again. But the teams I see in that division that do well to survive in it is the Ross Counties of this world, the St Johnstone, St Mirren as well, believe it or not. I think sometimes St Mirren look at a team that should be happy to just survive, although the board and everybody else would say, no, we want to be a top 6 team, which they done last year, which is great. But I still look at them and say, their teams are fighting a relegation battle every year, or possibly could be, right? But the two casualties this year, for me, are Ross County, St Johnstone, and I think Kilmarnock to a degree. I know they got a result last week, but the bottom line is I still think they're in a shaky nail at this moment in time as well. And probably, if they can get a result today, then that'll shut me up. But the other fixtures that we've got is Rangers Dundee. I think that'll be a really good game to see how Rangers respond to their cup final.
Yeah. I expect Rangers to get the 3 points.
I think so. I think they might win it comfortably, providing he actually goes with the same forward line as he's been doing. And they'll score goals. So there's no question of doubt about it. The other matches we've just mentioned there is Ross County and St Mirren. And if St Mirren are really want to progress in a lot of ways, they need though to get a result away at Ross County. Yeah. They'll be blowing a gale up there tomorrow, so it'll be interesting to actually.
No be any different from anywhere else.
No, that's true.
No, as you say, the weather will play a big part in the results.
But game of the weekend's obviously at Tannadice. I think Dundee United against Celtic on Sunday. And I think Dundee United, if they turn up, could certainly give Celtic a game there. A Celtic side who probably be licking their wounds slightly, even though obviously they lifted the cup, but they won't like the fact that Rangers took them to penalties. So. Yeah, I fully expect that to be a cracking game up at Tannadice on Sunday.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And then the game you've got, the other one this Sunday is Hearts and St Johnstone. And they desperately need to beat St Johnstone, because I'll tell you what, as much as we're all saying that Hearts and Hibs will come off the bottom, tell you what, this is a lifeline for St Johnstone if they can turn Hearts over. Because St Johnstone have got 14 points now, Hearts have 13. So that's like a 6-pointer to whoever gets a result.
Big 6-pointer. Yeah, big 6-pointer for sure. Anyway, moving into Championship, Dennis.
Yeah,
we'll get a few minutes to before we finish off.
Yeah, sure. Tomorrow's games is Airdrie, Partick Thistle, Falkirk, Hamilton, Morton, Dunfermline, Livingston, Ayr United. There's a game next Friday, which is Dunfermline versus Falkirk. And that's before, obviously, the fixtures that carry on the Saturday.
Thank goodness that's in Dunfermline.
Yeah. Well, it's next week. We can talk about that when we're on air. I think, obviously, tomorrow will be an interesting match with Morton against Dunfermline. Blowing a bit hot and cold, the two of them, both sitting down near the bottom of the league. They both need points. Morton's sitting in 16 points and Dunfermline in 15 points. So that one for me is almost no a relegation battle yet, because it's a tight division. From
unless you're Airdrie
down. Aye, I know that, but we're sort of glossed over.
We've done that to death. That's it.
Yeah, I think Partick Thistle should win that quite easily. And Falkirk, obviously, against Hamilton, you would expect them to get a result. Hamilton's sitting in 6th spot just now. Falkirk's at the top.
I fancy an away win, a Hamilton win there.
Do you think so?
Yep.
Well,
there you go.
Iain, your thoughts so we can. Hamilton or Falkirk? Iain, what one?
I would go with Falkirk.
Yeah. You're outnumbered, Cammy. That's why I knew Iain would do that.
It's fine.
Yeah. Right. No, I watched them a couple of times last year. I was really impressed with them last year.
They've looked good this season as well. I've seen them a couple of times this season. They have looked good, but I think to go down to Somerset Park last week and lose 5-2, maybe the bubble's bursting a wee bit. So we'll see.
It's a hard thing, Cammy, to go the whole season though and be consistent like that.
No, I know that's exactly. That's what I'm thinking.
Aye.
These things tend to come in 2s or 3s. So I've just got a funny feeling Hamilton will do enough tomorrow.
Right. And going into the next division, we have Annan are playing Arbroath, Cove Rangers, your team Ian, are playing Alloa, Kelty have got Queen of the South, Montrose Dumbarton, and Stenhousemuir are playing Inverness. Top Arbroath and Cove, 6th spot, Ian.
Yeah. Well, I would say in that league, anything, genuinely, just about anything could happen.
Well, 21 points is where Queen of the South are in 7th spot, and 28 is leading in the division. So there's nothing there in real terms between 1 and 7. People would say different if you're an Arbroath supporter, but the bottom line is it's only a 2-match swing as such that you're finding there, wait a minute, we just need to get 3 games under our belt. Now, we spoke about this, Ian, when you were on the last time, about Cove. They were at the bottom of the league. They have been at the top, as you will have noticed, and they've bounced back down again into sort of middle of the table.
Basically, had four wins in a row, which took them up the top. And then they beat Inverness in the Scottish Cup, and then it's been loss, and then a couple of draws. All the games, don't get me wrong, all the games have been 2-1s, 1-0s. They've all been very tight games. But if you look through the whole league, very seldom you do get a couple of games that swing away the other way, and you sometimes don't know the full circumstances of it.
Yeah.
But League One, that's certainly not one for your fixed odds, that's for sure.
No, 2 points from 5 games is no what you would expect to be.
No, it's not what they need.
A team that's going to be winning the league. So, got a big task tomorrow against Alloa. So
I mean, we have a very, very young side now. And then they're weeding out, weeding out the semi-professionals because they want to be full-time professional.
Right.
And there's I don't know really what is going on there, but a lot of youngsters that they've brought in, and they seem to merge quite well. For 4 games, they played really well. Didn't lose a goal, and then it's gone again. So I don't really know. I think it's going to be another season or 2 before you get any kind of settlement there, because once you've got full-time professionals at that level, they're not going to move unless another full-time club comes for them.
Yeah. There's one thing that's certain: they'll not get relegated because you've Dumbarton and Inverness down there.
Yeah, that's
basically.
Inverness, they're goosed anyway, aren't they?
That's right. Yeah. So you look at the two there, and there's a safety net now for Cove. So you could be out there and even enjoy the fact of maybe introducing young players, as you're saying they've done, and build, because you've not got the fear of going down. So there's that aspect of it that maybe clubs should be looking at and saying to themselves, hey, wait a minute, if we can't win the league, let us be looking at what we can experiment a little bit with and set ourselves up for the following season.
Yeah. And into League Two, Dennis, finish it off, because I am going to have a rant that I've not mentioned to either of the two of you yet. I'm going to go off on something pretty big.
Well, you can do it on the back of me reading last week's result. Elgin City 4, Clyde 2.
That was midweek. That was midweek.
So, well, you've got
Clyde fielded three subs in that game because they've no players.
Seriously?
They had 3 subs. They have been decimated by injuries, and their captain, Ray Grant, was sent off last week for one of the most softest alleged handballs you'll ever see in your life. But anyway, that's not my rant. My rant is more to do with events on the pitch and lack of facilities. So on you go. You run through the fixtures, and then you can listen to me.
I was just looking there at the fact that you did only have the 3 substitutes, not sitting in the house doing nothing. But anyway, Clyde have got forfeit. Clyde have got forfeit. East Fife, Spartans, Edinburgh City, Elgin, Peterhead, Bonnyrigg Rose, and Stirling Albion have got Stranraer.
Yeah.
Again, when you look at there, do you say to yourself, forfeit? How good are they now? I mean, you look at them, they're down there in the bottom spot, they've got 13 points, and you're sitting 2 points above them at Clyde. Mm-hmm. So that's almost a do or die.
On the back of 2 defeats where they've lost 7 goals.
Yeah.
But no, what I want to... First of all, I'm going to preface this by offering my best wishes and probably the best wishes of yourself and Iain, certainly the Friday night football pitch, to Paul Watson, who suffered what I fully expect to be if not a season-ending injury, which it is, but possibly and potentially a career-ending injury last week against Clyde. Him and Clyde's centre forward, Martin Rennie, went for a ball. He certainly came off the worst, and the game was held up for almost 45 minutes. But it happened 2 minutes into the second half. So the game was held up for about 45 minutes, while Paul Watson, who had suffered probably a horrific ankle injury, where effectively his ankle turned round 90 degrees. It's not pleasant, Iain.
No.
But what I want to go, as I say, I want to offer my best wishes to Paul Watson. It was a completely innocuous challenge, tackle, whatever you want. No blame attributed to Martin Rennie. It was just one of these unfortunate things. What I want to go off on one at is why in professional football, or whether it's the second division or not, are there not enough facilities where a player has to lie on the pitch for 35 to 40 minutes awaiting an ambulance coming from the local hospital to tend to him? Last week was 3 or 4 degrees in the stand, and I'm quite sure he wouldn't have been any warmer than that on the park, lying down. No. Spartans had to get blankets to cover the guy up to ensure he stayed warm, because there was nobody there medically qualified to move Paul Watson from the ground, or whether there was a lack of facilities in the medical room or whatever at Spartans, I don't know. But Paul Watson, after suffering a horrific ankle injury, was left lying in the middle of the park at Spartans ground for, as I say, the best part of 35 to 40 minutes awaiting an ambulance because he could not be moved. Now, we as fans were told we could move into their social club and whatnot around the park. Fair enough. Listen, I couldn't care 2 jots about how cold we were as fans standing around the park. We paid our money. We went there to stand. Paul Watson did not expect that, I'm quite sure, to have to lie around the penalty spot in the freezing cold for, as I say, 35 to 40 minutes waiting for medical treatment. And I think in this day and age, that's an absolute bloody travesty, and it's absolutely disgusting that happened.
But Cammy, we have a system within UK where the health service is flawed, where you could have a heart attack and wait 4 hours.
Listen, I'm not
So,
blaming the health
I know
service.
that, but
I'm wondering why Spartans are allowed to host a game where there's not enough medical treatment there to deal with a guy who suffered a horrific ankle injury. Dennis, you've been at games. I'm quite sure you'll have seen players suffer broken legs, dislocated kneecaps, and whatever else, and probably I know of injuries similar to that one. I've seen. I'm quite sure we've all seen that kind of injury. The fact that he had to lie in the middle of this park for 45 minutes because there was nobody at Spartans qualified to deal with that is
Cammy, as far as I was aware, you had to have a doctor at a game.
That's what I thought.
No, it's not the case.
Well, it was in my day.
Yeah, and I agree. And the reason I say that is because when at Cove Rangers, when Balmoral Stadium was opened, it was a friendly between Aberdeen and Cove, and Derek McInnes took a team up. He took a very good team up, actually, to play them. And the now manager of Peterhead, Jordan, I forget his last name, he was knocked clean out. It's the same again, and Nokia's they went up for a hit, came down, he was clean out.
Yep.
What they never realised was, I think he'd swallowed his tongue, and he was literally lying there dying. But because Aberdeen carry a doctor, the doctor came flying on, sorted out everything. But because of what happened, and because he was unconscious, and then they waited for an ambulance and blah, 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 they thought the right thing to do was abandon the game. So that was what they did. And I says, oh, it's good they've got a doctor. He says, yeah. He says there was only a doctor there because Aberdeen carry a doctor. I says, Cove don't know. They've got a medic. That's all they've got is a medic.
Yeah, as far as I was aware,
physio medic.
Yeah, I was led to believe that.
Surprised.
Yeah. Well, Albion Rovers, East Stirling, as far as I was aware, there was medical assistance there in the form of a doctor. Either you could get him immediately, or he was at the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So that's strange that you say that, but then again, Cammy, it doesn't surprise me because we're in the dark ages with a lot of things in Scotland, and I think it is disgusting. I also look at the way people get carried off pitches anyway in the UK, as if they're coming off on a surfboard.
I think that was part of the. I think that was part of the problem on Saturday, was that they were scared to move the player, and I fully get that. I understand that the medical staff, and I'm, by the way, I'm not having a go at Spartans medical staff, but I just think that there was a lack of properly qualified medical staff. If they were apprehensive or scared to lift this guy off the park into circumstances where it was warm, there's absolutely no way as an injured player that you should be lying on the park for 35 to 40 minutes. That just shouldn't happen.
No, I totally agree, but hopefully the boy will come out the other end okay.
Yeah. As I say, it's one of these injuries where, as I say, I think he's 34-year-old, so it's not as if he's a young guy, You're probably talking about a year's recovery minimum, if there is going to be a recovery. Let's be fair. If your ankle turns 90 degrees, that ain't great.
Nasty.
It is a nasty injury. I've seen similar injuries, Dennis. My other sport. I've seen similar injuries in American football. I've seen guys get their kneecap completely dislocated and essentially their knee snapping too. So I don't hold out much hope that Paul Watson will recover and play football. I certainly hope he does, even though he scored the opening goal against us. And as I say, my best wishes go out to him. I just feel it was completely wrong that he had to lie in the middle of the park for 45 minutes.
And that is wrong. Totally wrong.
So anyway, on that note, Dennis and Ian, I think we've overran. Apologies, guys. That was a 10-minute rave, or 10-minute rant. But I just felt it had to be said.
No, it's not a rant.
Absolutely warranted.
No, it's not a rant, Cammy. You're stating the facts of how poor it is in relation to looking after somebody's well-being when they get an injury. And I think maybe clubs need to sit up and take a bit of note if that's the case. That you always assume that there'll be an injury at football. If you don't, then you're misplaced.
Yeah. As I say, the injury, fair enough. If they don't have the medical treatment to treat that, fair enough, But somebody should have the know-how and the confidence that they're able to remove the guy from the park and get them into facilities where he's at least kept warm, and not have to lie in a freezing cold pitch.
Yeah. But people anyway. Had that with me and I was fit, trying to get me off the park.
You meant just try to warm you up.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, I think Ian's trying to do that in the golf courses with you as well, So
warm yourself up. You're coming off. Yeah.
Anyway, guys, thank you as always for this evening. You have been listening to the Friday Night Football Pitch. Go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment on YouTube. We're just three guys sitting here having a blether.
Yeah.
And as always, it's always happening in the pitch. Good night.
Good night.
Okay, good night.